The New York Liberty's first game of the WNBA Finals did not go so well as they fell to the Minnesota Lynx 95-93 in overtime at the Barclays Center on Thursday night. The team, they're going to look to rebound in Game 2 on Sunday in Brooklyn as they try to even this series at 1 game apiece. Joining me to preview Game 2 of the W Finals is the great journalist for NBC Sports who does a fantastic job of covering the WNBA, the one and only Natalie Esquire. Nat, what's going on?
Dexter, happy to be here. I just got here from the Minnesota Lynx practice today, so happy to be here and talk WNBA with you.
Well, look, I'm happy to be here. You and I were in the building for Game 1. Game 1 was quite interesting, as all the W fans know out there. Now, look, Nat, in this game, we saw the Liberty dominate on the boards, which I think many people thought that's going to be key for them to win this series, but they only end up shooting 37% from the field. So do you look at the way they lost, everything that happened in Game 1, do you look at that loss as a major gut punch for New York?
I mean, it's a demoralizing loss. It's demoralizing, but you have Breanna Stewart on that team. You have Courtney Vandersloot on that team. You have people who've won before. So you just can't hang your head too low. You follow your leader and you go in and you do what you have to do. You know what I mean? Like, it is demoralizing, but do I think it's so demoralizing that means the series is over and they can't get back in it and still win? No. But it's a really bad loss because you had the game. You should have won that game. And now you've put yourself, in a position, if you lose the series, you're going to keep thinking about Game 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you will. Listen, we were there. I've been to a bunch of basketball games at the Barclays Center, Liberty games, and I never saw a crowd leave that silent.
It was stunned. Yeah.
They were stunned. They were stunned. All right, so you mentioned Stewie, right? And Breanna Stewart, she had a rough shooting night in Game 1. She also missed that go-ahead free throw at the end of regulation. Then she also missed a good look for the game-tying shot at the end of overtime. Do you expect Stewie to have an MVP-level bounce-back performance here in Game 2?
Sure, but I mean, I think there's too much emphasis being focused on Breanna Stewart, to be honest. Yes, you want your MVP to play like an MVP always, but it happens. Great players have games in the playoffs sometimes where they're not at their best, But I know people are going to go to the layup. I know they're going to go to the free throw. I didn't think she should have been shooting free throws. One, I didn't see the foul, but even if people are going to say that there was a foul, you don't decide a finals game with that. So I thought going to overtime was good because I'm we don't want the game decided like that. But that being said, I don't think that's where the Liberty lost the game. I get it. Yes, if she made the free throw, they might win. Or if she doesn't smoke that layup, they go to a double overtime. I get that. That's the easy answer. That's what people do. Let's just go back and look at the last game, thing that happened. But while the game was happening, I was not loving many of Sabrina Ionescu's shots. I did not like her shot selection. And I was she's single-handedly allowing this team to get back in the game. That was during the second quarter. It was still, they didn't really get back in it until the third, but they cut it, cut the lead in that second quarter. And I was just you're giving them some life. And I really do think that's when the game was lost, because instead of putting your feet on the gas and continuing what you were doing in that first quarter to just take the life away from them, to make them feel we have no shot of coming back. That's what you want to do. You want to kick teams while they're down. And they didn't do that. And I thought letting them back in is what made it a game, not the fact that Breanna Stewart missed because you missed shots. Napheesa Collier could have missed that shot, right? It's just when you miss shots. She missed shots earlier in the game. Other players missed shots, but they made the shots at the end when it mattered. They got the rebounds at the end when it mattered. And that's just how basketball works.
Yeah, no, I think you make an excellent point on that for sure. I think a lot of people want to talk about Stewie missing the final shot, missing the free throws. There was so much more than that. Turnovers is something else you and I were talking about before we started recording. Yeah. Liberty were winning the turnover battle, and then they lost. They had 11 turnovers. The Lynx only had 10 in Game 1. Now, one bright spot for the Liberty offensively was the play of Johnquel Jones. She had a double-double, 24 points, 10 boards, 9 of 14 shooting. Should JJ be more of a focal point of the Liberty's offense when it comes to playing the Lynx? Because I remember you and I talking about this, particularly with JJ, after they lost to the Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup, where she didn't have that many touches. She got the touches, she got the shots. She seems to have an advantage, if you want to say that here. Should she be more the focus going forward in the series?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they have to like change the way they play to like feature her more. Minnesota has in the past done a good job of containing Johnquel, and I think you'll probably see a game or two where they can, So I don't think it matters really that much. I think the key is probably two. You need at least one of their big three probably to not have the greatest night. And I do think Sabrina Ionescu is if you're going to try to stop one of them, I'd probably start with her just because she gets the game going for them. She's their point guard, right? She's creating for everybody else. And if you can disrupt her, how she plays, meaning the moving downhill, the assisting, and get her into a place where she's not taking the best shots, I think it's going to disrupt, the rest of the team. And she actually spoke about this. She talked about the Minnesota Lynx in the last series. She compared the way the Aces guarded her in Game 3 to the Minnesota Lynx. And if you remember Game 3 in the prior series, Sabrina was really contained. And like she was asked about Johnquel, like, what do you think they were doing different to Johnquel? And she's like, they weren't doing anything different. What they did was stop me from being able to get the ball to my teammates. And I need to be better at that. And so like JJ can go off. And I mean, obviously you want to have someone good defending Stewie, but Nafisa is good at that, right?
She's the defensive player of the year.
Exactly. And so you live and die with Breanna Stewart, but if you can disrupt the person who is setting everybody else up and getting that offense to flow, I think that's going to be a better chance. So it's great that they had that kind of game from JJ. She was sensational. They're going to need her to continue that play, but keep doing what you're doing, Johnquel.
Right, and she was doing her job, beasting on the boards and all of that. I think it's a fantastic point you brought up because you saw, especially from the second quarter on, Minnesota, they were blitzing and trapping Sab and trying to get the ball out of her hands. And you mentioned the shot selection, which was not good, 8 of 26 from the field, didn't shoot the ball well, but there was a selection of the shots, which I agree with you, which I think were not good at all. Now, talking about the Lynx, Courtney Williams obviously received a ton of attention because of the big shot that she hit in the fourth quarter of Game 1. And if you haven't seen that, it is a tremendous shot. But her backcourt mate, Kayla McBride, +9 in Game 1, knocked down 4 threes in that game as well, too. McBride and Williams together, they outscored the Liberty starting backcourt 45-26. So, 36 in game 1. So, how does New York slow down Minnesota's guards? Because that's a place where they clearly had an edge in Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same formula. Like, you have to try to stop Courtney Williams, right? Kayla McBride is a 3-point assassin, like she's going to make shots. She's going to have some, there's some variance in her game. So she's maybe not going to shoot well every game, but she definitely steadied the ship for Minnesota while they were struggling early. And you're right. Not enough attention is being given to her. In fact, I don't even think I think she was going to be the player that did the post game, but because of what happened with Courtney at the end, because they switched, because people were like requesting Courtney. They were like, can Courtney come out? So she is a little overshadowed in that game because of the nature in the way that what happened with Courtney Williams, but she was excellent. She was great. But I think the way to slow them down is, again, going for their point guard. Try throwing some traps at Courtney. Try forcing the ball out of her hand. Courtney can obviously create for herself, but not all the players on Minnesota can do that, right? And then so she had 5 assists, I think, in Game 1. Did. So if you, again, disrupt the flow of their offense, both of these teams are excellent. The Liberty constructed a team to beat the Aces. The problem is the team they constructed is not necessarily a team that can beat the Minnesota Lynx, right? And you can't prepare for something you don't know is coming. Minnesota Lynx weren't on everyone's radar, right? So Minnesota has a team that can challenge, the Liberty. So both of these teams, it's just really about who executes on their game plan. And there's a little bit of luck you need, right? And so they're going to have the gamesmanship in between games, but like these are great players. These teams have played a lot. And Minnesota is a team that doesn't they don't deviate from the game plan, but the Liberty do. The Lynx don't. It's very hard to get them out of their game plan. So that's why they never felt worried. They never were like, we can't get back in this. You saw the Liberty start to get worried. That's what led to some of the decision making where you have Stewie maybe driving into traffic, where you have Sabrina maybe not going downhill, not moving the ball around the way she should. Leonie spoke about this as well after the game. So those are just bad habits that they fall into sometime, and they need to not do that.
Yeah, that's something they definitely need to clean up before the next game Sunday at the Barclays Center for Game 2. Bench points, major factor. I'll say factor. Major is probably a little bit much, but a factor in the first game. Liberty had 10 points off the bench. Courtney Vandersloot, she had 8 of those points in that. Does New York need more bench production in terms of scoring off the bench? And if so, who needs to step up for them in Game 2?
In the playoffs, you go like 7, maybe 8 deep. So.
And you see KT, and sorry, I'm going to cut you off, KT,
No
and not getting as many minutes as you see in the regular season. Courtney Vandersloot, to be fair, getting the bulk of those minutes off the bench postseason. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. And Courtney's been great. She's honestly been great these playoffs and this postseason. I don't know if she should have been on the floor in overtime, but who am I to question Sandy Brondello? They've had the number 1 seed all season, right? And I get it. She's going with experience, the vet. She trusts her, and she's been good. So I don't know if that was the right call because I think they needed some defense, but I can't knock her, for doing that. I think you just need your regular stars to knock down shots. I don't think that this is a bench production issue, right? Brianna Stewart's is going to have a better shooting game because that's just what the law of averages tells us, right? And honestly, the New York Liberty, they had, I don't know how the game finally ended, but there was a point in the game, they had 19 more field goal attempts than the Minnesota Lynx, right? So it was just one of those games. They weren't shooting well. If Brianna shoots even close to her regular numbers or Sabrina does, we're not having this conversation about the bench. So I don't think it's a bench issue, but I do think not allowing the Lynx to take you out of your fundamental principles, what you do, just executing the New York Liberty game plan. If they stick to that, that's always going to be their best chance. You move the ball and you live and die with the shots you get, but going one-on-one, isolation, that's what hurts the Liberty, not these other things.
And that's what you heard Sandy Brondello talk about after Game 1. She talked about those fundamental principles that the Liberty needed to get back to in order to do that. I feel like this is going to tie into the last thing I got to ask you, right?
Okay.
Because, all right, some fans are going to be down about what happened in Game 1. How are they going to bounce back? The Liberty, as you said, they did some good things. They dominated on the boards. They had 23 second chance points. But they turned the ball over a bunch and didn't hit the shots they needed to. What do they need to clean up, and what are the keys to them to get a victory in Game 2 and head back to Minneapolis with the series tied at 1?
Yeah, they need to come out with the same vigor that they did in Game 1. So they really need to put Game 1 behind them. And they just need to play Liberty basketball. Again, this is a very good team they're playing against. There's not this masterful thing, I don't think, that you can, even though it's Game 1, I don't think there's this thing do this and you're going to win. You have to really execute on the game plan. The Liberty are a more talented team than the Lynx. More talented, okay? But in my opinion, the Lynx, I've said this all season.
You have. I know where you're going.
They have been the best team in the WNBA. And what I mean by that is their whole is greater than the sum of their parts, right? And I think they understand that and know that, which is why they don't deviate from the game plan. Because I remember watching the game, and I was like, if Nafisa Collier is going to let them contain her like this, they're not going to win. Okay, and that's why she was like, you need to be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about, because they won the game, right? And she stepped up big when she needed it. But there was a point in the game where Fee had not that many shots.
Yeah.
It was efficient, but she took what the defense gave her. She didn't decide. And there are times you're going to need your star to go be a star, but she trusted their process. She trusted what they did all season to get them there. And sometimes Breanna Stewart and even Sabrina, I'd say more than Breanna, they deviate from the game plan. And when you do that, that's how a comeback like that happens. They need to trust the ball movement. Sabrina needs to trust it's going to get back to her. Execute on your game plan. They are the more talented team. Execute on your game plan. Both great defenses, both great offenses. You're going to have a very great chance of winning the game if you do that.
All right, we'll see if the Liberty are able to do that. I love a lot of what you said there. Got to trust the process. Got to trust everything that's been going on. Can't deviate from the game plan. See if the Liberty are able to do that. Do you feel confident? What was your prediction before we go? What was your prediction for this? Because, and I have to say this, there are people, and I'm going to say this, there are people who know Nat has come on a lot with me, and we love the work that Nat does. And people anxiously await Nat's power rankings. And some people think Nat doesn't like the Liberty. And Nat has, I'm just going to be fair. I want to be fair to everybody. Nat has said this to me from the beginning of the season, maybe we'll say quarter through the season, about the Lynx and how you felt about they were a complete team. You've been saying this to me. We talk all the time. So you've been on that. Don't remember what your prediction was before the series. So I just want to see and how you're feeling about your prediction as we move forward in this WNBA Finals. How are you feeling about your prediction, Nat?
Feeling great right now about my prediction. But, look.
Which was you predicted the Lynx to win.
I did, but I kind of joked. I didn't give a real prediction. I said it's Lynx in 4 or Liberty in 5. There's no other way that the series can go.
That's how you see it going down, right?
But look, at the end of the day, I just think if the Liberty can really rally behind what happened in Game 1.
They can.
I don't think that they needed that. I don't like when people try to frame it like this is what they needed and Brianna's gonna go crazy.
Right.
She shouldn't have needed this, and I don't think she did. So they can rally around it. So it doesn't mean anything. And I talked to Lynx players today, and they were like, we won one game. That's it,
right.
And so everyone seems to be measured and understands, this is a series. It's not over. But I think Minnesota set themselves up very nicely to win this series. And the percentages say that the team that wins Game 1 has very strong odds of going on to win the series. So that doesn't mean that we can't change things, right? Until the last game.
Right.
The Lynx were the first team. No team had come back from that kind of deficit and won a game, right? So anything is possible. So, but yeah, I think the Lynx put themselves in the position to win the series. And right now, if they lose Game 2, it's like you're going home to Minnesota. We saw the Sun beat them at home, so it's possible.
That's right.
I don't think the Liberty have done that though this year. So it would be a challenge for them for sure. But anything's possible. But I have the Lynx winning this series, and I'm gonna stick by that pick.
She's standing by it, people. Don't come for her Liberty fans. She's standing by it. That is the great Natalie Esquire of NBC Sports. It's a fantastic job covering the W. Check her out. Natalie, appreciate you coming through for a breakdown and preview Game 2. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Dexter.
Anytime.